dëgg la yow gars yi ñoo ñàkk fay man la ñuy teg seen sàcckatu 1000 francs ma sàccagul rek su ma jekkoo nga xam sàcckatu lan laa mën a doon.
mais yow xam nga ne fi ñu tëdd sox mbët.
nga ni.
bi fi làmb ji la dimanche sox mbët fi nekk science la.
yee. bàyyi ma nag ma science léegi fu kees gi féete.
Hello and welcome to Still Watching the Skies for January 2025. I'm Robert Reinecke.
I'm Nat Almorel.
I'm Cody Lang.
Every month we explore the lesser discussed science fiction movies of the past. Some are famous, some obscure, all which we believe will create interesting conversations. And sometimes, very occasionally, reveal a film that's not even a science fiction film. That brings us to this month's film, the Djibril, Diop, Mambéty's Touki Bouki from 1973, which certainly is an influence of the concept of Afrofuturism, if it perhaps falls outside the genre itself. And if that's not enough, we plan on talking about the year 2024 in film. Nat picked this month's film, so he'll give our listeners a brief summary of the film and key principles, and then we'll start our discussion. So take it away, Nat.
I was wondering how soon into the episode that you would editorialize on the science fiction qualifications on this, and I think that was the first thing that you sent to the text chain as well. But I think at least we can all agree that it's one of those that fits into science fiction adjacent, or at least it's listed as one of the prominent parts of, if not heralds of Afrofuturism, which I'm not sure if there is a steady definition for that. It seems to combine elements of like fantasy and science fiction, but I tend to think of it more as science fiction now. But yeah,
I always thought of Afrofuturism as being science fiction, but I'm not an expert in it, but it's the ones I've seen and read about are all is set in the future. So
yeah.
What's the movie about, guys? Did someone give a plot synopsis?
How dare you? No. Yeah. So Touki Bouki, which is translated to The Journey of the Hyena, released in 1973, and as Robert said, directed by Djibril Diop Mambéty, cinematography by Pop Sambasao, edited by Siri Asteni, starring Magaya Niang and Oremi Niang. Made for $30,000, but it follows the exploits of Maori, who's according to Wikipedia, cowherd, who drives a motorcycle mounted with a bullhorn skull, and Anta, a student who meet in Dakar. They both dream of a better life outside of their native Senegal in All Together Now, Paris. Also should mention, yes. Music by Josephine Baker, among others. But along the way, they kind of engage in various schemes, get-rich-quick schemes, either
hijinks,
and
Hijinks.
Either robbing their community or robbing wealthy gay men. But
winning at 3-card Monte.
Exactly. Well, winning. So yeah, it's kind of like a Senegalese 1973 Grand Theft Auto. But this is a film, I guess it's had a bit more of a resurgence in the last, I guess at least 17 years or so. I think it was restored by the World Cinema Foundation in 2008. And Martin Scorsese, in particular, is a big champion. Shows up on a list of most prominent Afrofuturism films and figured, okay, let's see this. It also has a Criterion release. But yeah, one other.
Also on the Sight and Sound list, top 100.
Ah,
Yeah, around like 66 or so.
okay.
Very well liked.
I can see why, and I also, on the note of trivia with this movie, I do want to mention I'm just conferring or checking my notes because I don't want to get this wrong. But it also was used in promotions for Beyonce and Jay-Z's On the Run 2 tour in 2018, and that drew criticism from Mambéty's niece since no African countries were included in the tour. So,
interesting.
yeah.
That's what I would call an interesting example of cultural appropriation.
Yeah, and there can be many interesting discussions that can be had with this. And I think actually cultural appropriation was literally referred to in the summation of criticisms.
Well, because neither of them are from Senegal.
Mm-hmm. I think
not,
even more universally speaking about Africa itself. But let's jump into it. So, what did you think of Touki Bouki, Cody?
Touki Bouki. So I may have seen this before, but I think I forgot. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's science fiction, but we'll just get that out of the way. I don't think it's science fiction, but I do think it's a good movie, and I think, I don't know if, it's that similar to French New Wave. It seems just to be, generally speaking, so, in the 60s and early 70s, there was, a lot of quote-unquote new waves happening. Aside from France, there was Japanese New Wave. There was what was called the Yugoslav Black Wave. There was Czech New Wave, obviously, and then the other big one was in Brazil called Cinema Novo, and that's the one that this one seems to draw the most similarities to, from what I can tell. But all of them were really influenced by Italian neorealism, and mostly not so much the subject matter, but mostly just the way of making films. And I do feel like that comes through in this movie. It's I love watching movies that are shot on film from a long time ago, because you can really, and when they're not overproduced or anything, you really feel like you're seeing just a document. And and I love seeing just any place shot like this, but especially someplace I've never been to. It's I don't really the story for me doesn't, it kind of takes a backseat a bit. I just kind of looking at it. And this film, he's they're just naturally, the people involved in the film were just naturally very visual, because almost every shot was striking or very beautiful and colorful. Mm-hmm. And the repeated use of the motorcycle with the cow skull on it is just a cool shot and a cool idea. And the story for me, it's okay. I don't really get much out of it, but just the general atmosphere of the film and the style of the film, the way it's edited together, is really interesting. I like the repeated use of the song, and I was listening to one thing about the film today, and they were saying that how the filmmaker was intentionally trying to make the song annoying, I guess, just by how how much he was overusing it, and he was trying to he was kind of using it in a way that he thought it would irritate people. It didn't get to that effect to me, but I'm not sure how it would have been perceived in Senegal in the 70s, about a country where people maybe would have felt that way, that they want to leave and go to France, and then they're hearing this really obnoxious, it's not obnoxious, but a very old-timey song about Paris.
And really not even the whole song, just kind of a small section of it.
Yeah, and it's not like in The Long Goodbye where you hear the same song but it's redone in a different way each time, which is kind of cool too. It's just that this is kind of like a recurring motif or sound cue or something. So I did like that part of it. Yeah, overall I think it's like a good movie. I don't like I wouldn't put it on like my top 100 if I was to make one, but I don't dispute like it being on the Sight and Sound list. And yeah, it was a good pick for sure.
Bobby?
Robert, what do you think?
I'll jump in. I think it was a good pick too. I mean, it might fall outside our guidelines, but at least if you follow your guidelines, you might hit something interesting. And I think Touki Bouki is a interesting film, no matter where you're coming from. Well, unless you're probably very sensitive to animals, because it literally opens as cows getting slaughtered in Avatar. So you see that in fairly graphic detail, and it's kind of a challenge slap in your face. And I think that's the point. I mean, I would say we could talk about it being French New Wave inspired, but I think it's definitely Godard inspired, because certainly it's not trying to give you a big hug and this kind of guide you into this world. It's kind of saying, hey, you either deal with it or not, because this is the way this place is, and it's not always pleasant. And I feel that, we got some beautiful shots and we got death, and they kind of alternate, at least at the beginning. I mean, we also have outside the abattoir, or the slaughterhouse, we also have a goat getting butchered later in the film. But I kind of feel like death is part of this film, and it wants to make that point. And it doesn't want you to be comfortable with it necessarily. I think it's deliberately in your face. I mean, and I feel like the story itself is kind of wanting you to think about it, because parts of it I feel are definitely fantasy or kind of a daydream. So it's hard to say what is exactly happening, what is real and what is fiction. The lines are definitely blurred here. I mean, I think we can say that wanting to get out of the country to Paris is real, but it's also a daydream too. That how they do it is hard to tell how much of it is real. Although I did like characters of Mori and Anta. I feel that they're compelling protagonists, and I kind of find the part where Mori and Anta ends up at the fat rich guy's place. Was it Charlie? And he starts hitting on Mori, and Anta's just kind of wandering out. And while he's hitting on, or Charlie's hitting on Mori's kind of robbing him blind of his clothes for money. So I feel that's kind of part of the point. And for get rich quick schemes, they're very clumsy about it. They steal the wrong wrestling match payroll box. They kind of end up dropping all of the clothes when they're trying to steal it, although they do manage to get in the red, white, and blue car of Charlie and get driven off by his chauffeur. So I think that's kind of a joke, and I feel that red, white, and blue car is part of the fun of the film. And the political point, I think that feels in there. I mean, I feel it's like a more anti-colonial than anti-American film, but I feel that's in there. And I mean, I do like the contrast. You can see the rich high rises over the, I don't know if I call them slums, but the poverty and huts of the Senegal there. So I feel that contrast is there, and I feel that one is the contrast between the futuristic West and Senegal is part of what I feel is like one of the key parts of Afrofuturism. But overall, I enjoyed it. I don't know if it'll be in my top 100 either, but I'm not African or so. But if I was African, I can certainly see how this would be one of the most important films made on the continent. So, and the fact that it is kind of in your face about it and not very what do I want to say, safe, probably. I feel that's a very much a point in his favor. So, yeah, that's my general thoughts. What about you, Nat?
Yeah, I really liked it, and this was a first-time watch for me as well. I think it's interesting. This is his first, and I think one of two feature-length films. I think he had done a couple of shorts prior to this, but for kind of like a first-time full feature film, and I believe it was around like 26, 27 or so when Mambéty did this. I'm pretty impressed. Pretty impressed by it. And I agree too. I think a lot of the things that really resonated with me. I love the contrast between like the slums or whatever, they're in kind of like the impoverished village, and then when they go to the big city, there's just a really neat sort of dynamic there, and seeing, I guess, how there's this sort of class of cultures, and the dress definitely, I think, like stands out. When they go to the wrestling match, kind of the higher ups are all wearing very ornate, elaborate, colorful robes, and I'm assuming these are kind of the local big wigs, but most of the people who are living in these sort of slum areas, either they're wearing more Western style but kind of worn down clothes, or more traditional, like I guess Senegalese dress. And then I love their Maury and Anta's outfits at the end of the film when they're sneaking on board the boats as well. But yeah, I think just really some fantastic images in this, and I think the vignettes really serve it well. It's entertaining to watch. Like here's kind of like the entertainment in this village. Either we can play 3-card Monte, we can watch a wrestling match, slaughter a goat, or we can scare the hell out of a cab driver by taking him to a haunted house, so to speak. But yeah, I think I'm pretty much in agreement there. It resonates with me maybe a little bit more. Again, I'm not quite sure I put it on a top 100 list, but maybe on a subsequent rewatch, it may weasel its way onto there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the main thing I would like to talk about would be how much of this film is fantasy and how much of it is reality, and it doesn't really make a difference. Because I know there's a shot at the end with Anta and Maury back on the beach or overlooking the ocean there, and my question is anything in the
I think
film
that
actually
is
happened?
fantasy.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've been. Yeah. I mean,
Like, is that flashback, or is that just was the entire sequence from when that shot appears earlier in the film to when that shot reappears fantasy?
Well, I think in that moment it's just meant to show, like, yeah, that they want to be together, but I think that she's alone at the end.
I took it to be a flashback as well, but
maybe the last minute that they were together without these schemes going on.
Well, and getting screwed over, yeah. Well, screwing themselves over.
Although I think something that may lend credence to the fantasy element of that, though, is the crazy white guy in the tree who steals the bike.
I read some discussion of that. They think that's maybe a parody of Tarzan.
Okay.
The white man's fantasy of Africa.
Wait a sec. When was Tarzan? Like, when was that story written?
I think the 20s.
Oh, I think it was earlier than that.
Yeah,
but was it like a pulp thing, like Conan?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
okay.
Conan. Yeah.
Okay. So would people around the world have known about Tarzan?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think so. I mean, the serials I think were really popular. So if they had,
Right. Okay. It was like a household thing, like it was like, as popular as Disney maybe. Okay.
Yeah, I feel that's safe. I mean, you had the Johnny Weissmuller films in the 30s, and they had movies in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and television shows in the 60s. So yeah,
All right. Okay.
there was
Yeah,
a time.
like as soon as you mentioned that, I was thinking, like, when did actually the original Tarzan come out, or like what is the original Tarzan?
I'd have to look it up, but I think my gut is somewhere around 1910 or so.
yeah, I think Burroughs was writing them like around then, maybe even a little earlier. I initially was thinking like late 1890s or 1890s to like early 1900s or so, but it might be a little bit later. But I think the serials were from like the 20s and 30s, because I think Princess of Mars too, which is Burroughs, is like around that time.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, Tarzan was magazine publication 1912, and the book publication was 1914.
Okay.
Oh wow.
And then Burroughs cranked out like 23 sequels.
Yeah, he wrote a shit ton of those. But that's something that's interesting with movies like this too, is that, I mean, you definitely get a feel for the decade, and there's definitely a sense of modernism that or at least like our current time that you can connect with. But I feel that there's things where I'm hesitant to identify with, because I'm not sure if it's something that would be known to like that geographical culture, or that would be obvious. And it's kind of a similar thing with like when we did To Sleep with Anger a couple years ago for our Secret Santa. But like, are there certain elements or tropes that like maybe we just aren't familiar with, not geographically being from that culture? Like, I take a lot of the vignettes that they like for their schemes to be representatives of people who have either at least been influenced by Western culture, or if not like corrupted by it. So you have the kind of intimidating officer who takes the cigarette from him, and then they're able to steal the box because he has a full pack of cigarettes, and so he doesn't care about anything. You have Charlie, I guess, who's looks much more like he's trying to put on sort of Western affectations. Like he has more Western style dress, he has more Western style cars, and there's kind of like a luxury by at least Western standards within that. And then the people like on the boat, and then that's kind of the sense that I get, but I'm also not sure if I'm willing to take that plunge, because there may be like tropes specific to either Senegal or just African cinema or Africa in general that just may be going over my head that would be readily apparent to anybody from there.
Yeah, probably. Like in terms of African movies, I think Senegal is one of the major producers, or was. So the films I would have seen would have been mostly from Senegal as well. And like what I've read about this film and other films as well from Senegal is that the idea of like the oral storyteller is pretty key to their films. So for example, like when this director was asked to comment about the influence of the French New Wave, he kind of blew it off and said, this is how we tell stories. Like, we don't really connect them in like a linear straight line, and we like to jump around. So like he was trying to say, like, he was tying the style of the film to, a local tradition. I think it's called like the storyteller figure in their tradition would have been called the griot. So Griot. and I would have only known that because I've read about it in like academic stuff, but and I wouldn't have picked up on it otherwise. But yeah, there are probably other things, like, that's a pretty obvious thing, I think, and that's something like I had to read to pick up on. But there's definitely other things that, like, we're watching that, yeah, it's probably going over my head for sure. Like, just in terms of how they dress or behave. Yeah, like that's why I don't really get too tied down in the storytelling elements. Like I'm more just I kind of just get more into the style of the film and the way it looks. But the story, like, is a bit influenced by Western stuff. Like, it's kind of like Bonnie and Clyde, or, well, it's more it's
or
it's
Breathless
not it's,
even.
yeah, it's like it is more Godard, because like it is like Godard would take like the couple on the run plot and kind of screw with it in a few of his films. And I wouldn't say it screws with it, but it does kind of parody it a bit. Like, it does, like, because they don't get away in the end, and they kind of just are constantly being screwed over either by themselves or just by circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And the song, I feel, is kind of like, do you really want to go to Paris? Are you gonna really be happy there? Mm-hmm. Or is it just gonna be out of place and be annoyed? I feel that kind of comes up there, and I kind of wonder how much Godard's an influencer. It's just like, well, if you don't have a lot of money, jump cuts are kind of the way to go.
Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, like I do think that like that the style is kind of like, yeah, maybe it's influenced by Godard, but I didn't feel like it was that much of a ripoff or anything. Like, it seemed like, no. and I don't know the filmmaker very well, but I would think, yeah, like maybe that's just the style that he developed in his short career. Because other filmmakers that I've seen from this period, like, they do follow the more straightforward, realist approach, right? And which is, very common and works for like their budgets and for their level of industrial production for their film industry. But yeah, like this one has a bit of like a poetic, sort of nonlinear feel to it that I think does work well, and probably is good at getting across all these different little, moments of life from the local culture. Mm-hmm. That again, like Nat was saying, we might not be fully able to appreciate, or at least myself, having not been there ever. So, like, yeah, my wife lived in Kenya for 2 years, and she had made some comments like, "Oh, that's, it's common for people to dress like this, or for there's certain people to, like, I remember one time we were watching a Kendrick Lamar video where we're set in Africa, and there was these guys that were in these like slums, but they were dressed like really well. Like, they were dressed like, they're from like Superfly or something. And she said, oh yeah, it's common for old men in those places to dress like that. Like, they sort of take something from North American or Western culture and kind of latch onto it. And then it kind of comes out of place a bit. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that it's kind of coming from its own experience, but I kind of feel like, all on the road, lovers on the run movies, all kind of touch on common experiences, and I feel that regardless, you can't be too alien when you're touching on a well-worn, I feel, story here. I mean, I don't know if there's anything new about the story other than where it's set and how it goes about telling the story, but I feel like the various plot points are familiar to pretty much everybody. I feel it's fairly universal in that respect. It's just in the way that the story is told and where it goes that is kind of new.
And it's interesting that for a film that opens with a pretty graphic killing of a cow, and where you get a goat tossed into the mix later, that overall, I feel the tone tends to be a little bit more lighthearted than you would expect. There's not like catastrophically dire consequences for the two. Maury basically just decides to stay there and then goes on presumably to Paris.
Yeah.
But they don't really get caught. Like, they don't get caught on the boat. They don't get caught. They don't get caught with the taxi driver. That's just played more for comedy. They don't get really caught by Charlie. They don't really get caught by the box guard. And nobody really gets hurt. Like, Maury gets his ass kicked at the beginning by a roving gang, but more or less there's kind of like not a, even though this is like potentially sort of third world-ish, there's not life isn't so cheap as to be easily disposable. Like,
well, I do think that Maury does get his cycle gets stolen and wrecked, or at least the big symbol of the cow horns on it. And I'm wondering about that gang at the beginning. They seemed like they were kind of revolutionary college students rather than
or just like, there's a new group of them like every week in the streets there. No, and I also love the traffic cop where she's taking the taxi, he's following along in the motorcycle, and he gets pulled over by like the cop who's like little chubby, but just kind of has like the motions down for guiding traffic, and Maury gets away by telling him that he knows him, and he's like, no, I don't know you. But another neat little, I guess, like Western influence character in that. But yeah, I feel that for as short a time as we get to spend with so many of these guys, Taxi Driver is another good one, and Charlie with I love Charlie's paddleboard. Especially since like
Charlie has a nice house right there on the ocean there, doesn't he?
Yeah, but I would think he could afford a better paddleboard, and at least if he's going to put a paddleboard in that pool, it could be a bigger pool, and even if it's not a better paddleboard, they wouldn't have so many people in it. But
maybe he's a big fish in a small pond.
I think that is the idea. And man, I doubt any of us have ever been in this situation, but if we're trying to seduce someone into joining us in the shower, how long would we wait before we either gave up or at least like checked to see if they were still there? Because
or at least get a feedback to see if it's working.
Yeah, like that goes on a little bit long, and kind of feel bad for Chuck there, but
I feel like nobody really gives a darn about their antics and what they're trying to do. I mean, Charlie doesn't take them seriously even when he calls the cops. It doesn't seem like their lives are ever in danger or they're getting in serious trouble there. They're just kind of wasting their time more than anything and not getting anywhere.
Yeah, that's where it has the Godard feel a bit, where in Breathless and Pearl Le Fou, like, they are screwing around a lot, but there's almost no consequences, or like until the very end. But yeah, there's like, you just feel like you're just following two people, kind of fart around for 90 minutes.
Well, and they succeed though. It's not like there's a
they have succeeded.
Well,
they have succeeded, yeah. Well,
they get to where they ultimately, or at least where they wanted to get when they set out, and then or at least Maury decides like not to see it through to the end. But it's not like somebody or something conspired to prevent them from achieving that. Like, they're still in control of their fate.
Yeah, I guess I thought like part of the plan was like they'd be there together. Because didn't someone crash his bike?
Yeah,
the Tarzan character crashed his bike.
Yeah. Like, he steals the bike and then he gets into a traffic accident, and then Maury's bike sense goes off and he's able to stop boarding the boat and then track it down in the car.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I would
No,
think
I
that's
feel
kind of
that,
like a funny twist on it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he still chooses to do that, though. It's not
Yeah.
like
no, I agree, and that's why I'm saying it's a bit like the Godard Couple on the Run ones, because like, you know, Perrault Le Fou ends with the guy tying dynamite around his head after he painted his face blue, and blows himself up, and like no one made him do that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Maury gets the sense that people are closing in on him, and he says, well, kind of think, well, at least one of us should get away. And they're not looking for Anta. They're all looking for him. I feel that's somewhere in there of that. It's not just his bike sense. It's his overall, let me do something for Anta. Though I feel like, yeah, there's a price paid, but he does get her out. So is that love?
That's love, baby.
Oh yeah. Well, even before that though, like when they first get to the city, he's talking about how he's going to seduce like a French woman and then come back, but they're still together. Like he's telling her or saying that to her while he's there. So there's some degree of flexibility, or at least I understand there's some degree of flexibility in their relationship in pursuit of this better life goal.
Yeah, they're very modern.
Mm-hmm.
A very modern couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that they do have kind of the revolutionary chic about them at times, especially Anna.
Which is very French. They're very French. Yeah. They just go with it. They're cool with anything.
I do note that, you know, at the when Anta's getting away on the big ship, there's also a shot of a small sailboat attempting probably the same journey. Although it's going to be much more dangerous in that small sailboat. So there's not one way to go, although one way is much more dangerous than getting on that ship.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that they're touching on some common themes of wanting to get away. Although I feel that's more Senegal centered, because people want to go visit Paris in America, but I don't feel like people want to escape to Paris in America anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think I get a sense that it's always their longer term goal to return to Senegal, to kind of like bring whatever they're able to acquire in Paris back to their home, as opposed to escape their home. Like there's always that sense of like they don't want to abandon their country. It's just it doesn't offer them that much.
They don't want to abandon their country or their family.
Yeah.
I mean, they do have family, at least Borg does.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we're ever clear on what Anta's ties are to Senegal, though she's certainly seems eager to leave. I mean, she has ties to Maury, but I don't think she has ties to anybody else. And I feel that they at least touch on that Maury has, what would you say, bourgeois dreams of going to college and then getting a good job, even in Senegal.
Yeah, but I think those dreams are almost always involve like conning someone.
Yeah, they don't appear to learn a good trade and then work your way up. But you know, maybe that speaks to Senegal culture. There really is no legitimate path forward to the American dream or even the French dream of middle class life.
I also want to call out, like, I like a lot of the shots. Like, there's some really good uses of perspective here, especially for motor vehicles, whether it's the taxi or the bike.
Like, you mean when the blue suitcase is right in front?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah. And for something where, again, it's like $30,000 or so, which would have been a good deal more in 1973 than it is now, but it still is, I think, a fairly low budget film, and I think it's pretty impressive what they're able to pull together and accomplish for that.
Yeah. No, I think Cody was right when he pointed out the neorealism aspects before, because I feel like, you just point a camera at Senegal with a fresh eye and you're going to get something interesting. Even American independent cinema does the same thing, where you go somewhere and you capture the landscape and the people, and voila, you have an interesting film. So, I mean,
yeah, but it sort of takes a director to have like a good understanding of their local culture. And I did listen to a couple things about this, and about this director, and someone noted that he always shot in places and local communities where he had lived there for like a fair amount of time. So it's not like he's going, scouting locations like how we would in North America, and shoot a film. Like he had intimate knowledge of where he was, of the communities that he was shooting in. And I'll give an example of when that really stands out, when there is a lack of knowledge. I recently saw Emilio Perez, which is made by a French filmmaker, and the film is set in Mexico. Now, I've been to Mexico maybe a few times. It did come off as the film came off as a bit odd, but apparently it was just lambasted by people from Mexico, saying this is such a tone deaf or out of touch film about Mexican people, Mexican culture. So yeah, I guess like there is, like, you can do it the wrong way as well. Yeah. So, but I do feel like you are getting like a slice of life here. Like you are getting like it's almost like a documentary, even though it has a lot of surreal and fantastical sequences. Like I feel like I'm looking at like a document from time here, and that's one of the things I really like about seeing old stuff on film like this. Like whether it's documentary or a fiction film, like it's always going to be just interesting in and of itself. Like aside from what the story's doing, like I just kind of like watching images like that.
Yeah, and I think the 70s is just such a great time for that too, because you have, at least like architecturally in some degrees, some things that are still in use today. So like the city looks like a city would look today, but I don't know if you would see the outskirts of that looking as much today as they did in like 1973. So it's kind of like the merging of these two things, where there's a contemporary aspect to it, but there's also a historical aspect to it as well. And I just think it's really, really well done contrasting it. Even going from the outskirts to, I think when he's like walking at the borders of the outskirts, I think when his mom curses him out, and just kind of like the open fields there, and I couldn't articulate the sense or how I would prove that he lived in this place, but I think again, just that eye for detail, or just those sorts of personality types that we see in this film stand out, because there's a little characteristic of them and how they're dealt with. And again, the I don't know, police officer, but the guy who gets a cigarette from him and then gets a pack of cigarettes. Like it's such a neat little plot detail where he's escaping the 3-card Monte dealer and running through all these back alleys, and then he runs into this cop who basically just wants to, like, suspects that he's up to no good and just uses it to get a smoke from him, and is supposed to like do his job. And even the 3-card Monte dealer, like where he keeps repeating the rules of here's how you play, here's how you can bet, and even when he tries to bet like 1,000 francs or whatever, it's like we don't take bets that high. And then he gets all pissed off when he loses, and he's not even like I'll have your balls or anything. It's like I know where you live, kid. Get out of here. Like, but what were you gonna say, Robert?
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's kind of like everybody's running some sort of scam or trying to get ahead of their own way. And it's not, I guess it's just, I won't say the culture, but I feel that there's it's common to look to get ahead through some sort of cheat shortcut. Maybe because that's the only way you can get ahead at this time, or at least it feels that way.
Mm-hmm. Or take like some sort of government position and then try to abuse that. But even then, like the abuses are so minor or so petty that it's like, yeah, you're like maybe 2 steps ahead of like one person, whereas other people can be 5,000, 50,000 steps ahead of you.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like when we're talking about the architecture here, I feel kind of it's a product of its time, because they just kind of like won't drop some European architecture in the middle of Senegal here and won't think anything about it. Well, I feel like today the people will be much more conscious about kind of blending it in and taking some of the local architecture and look and making sure it felt a part of it. Well, this is just kind of like, nope, we're just going to drop in these French high-rise buildings.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's got to be intentional, though, right? Like to contrast it with like the slums of that. But even still, my point is that it's a city, and you can identify pretty easily as a city, and it would not necessarily be wholly out of place even today.
That kind of speaks to being a product of its time, but yeah, it's have one step in now. We recognize it. I mean, 50 years ago, or 51, not that long ago as far as buildings. Most people build buildings to last. So it's kind of like we got the modern and still would be recognizable in the present.
Well, I think I'm pretty much spent on Touki Bouki.
I think I'm Touki'd out.
Do you guys want me to announce the next film, or do you want me to, or should we wait until we discuss the other stuff?
Let's discuss the other stuff. We're going to talk about 2024 in film. I mean, it was an interesting post-strike year, and I think you can see the strikes of 2023 had an effect on it. But I don't know. Anybody want to start out, or?
Let me pull up my letterbox here. One sec. I can start. So I'll just say the films that I liked, or that stood out to me. Not in any particular order, but I'll mention my favorites, I guess. The ones that I liked a lot, and I thought Hollywood actually did have a good year. Or at least films made in America, which I just associate with being in Hollywood. So I really liked the early part of the year, which I normally don't. So the 2 ones that I really liked were Civil War and Challengers.
I like Challengers quite a bit too.
Yeah, I really like those. I thought there was a lot of good science fiction this year. So the ones I really liked for science fiction were Dune 2, obviously. I liked Cuckoo, and I liked Furiosa a lot, and I liked, I don't know if you guys are going to agree with me, but I liked Megalopolis.
I haven't seen Megalopolis yet.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen it yet either.
Okay, I really think you guys should watch it. I would almost want to pick it for the podcast, but it might be too new.
No such thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I'll wait till it's a year old. But I really liked. I wouldn't say I think it's a good movie, but I liked it. Like I enjoyed watching it. Saw it in a theater with almost no one, like in downtown Toronto. Like it did not do well here.
Nor here.
Okay, yeah. And then again, early in the year, I really liked Love Lies Bleeding, and I really liked Drive Away Dolls by the other Coen brother. And then, so I guess the one that really stood out to me this year was The Substance, which I think most people would agree is good. I didn't mind Long Legs. I thought for me, I thought it had a really good style and atmosphere, but the story was maybe not all there. And then I didn't really enjoy, I would say it's my least favorite of the 3, but I liked Maxine. And then Leos Carax put out a film via the Criterion Network called It's Not Me, and it's sort of like a film essay, montage collage film on his career and life, and I really like that. So yeah, overall, I thought, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff this year. A lot of stuff I didn't like, but I'm not going to mention that. But obviously Canadian film Frankie Fricro, which is a sci-fi as well, which I saw at Fantasia Fest, and then it came out for a limited run in Toronto, so I saw it again there.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, yeah. Do you guys agree on those? Do you see some of those, or?
Yeah,
I think I haven't seen most of those, Cody, but those sound interesting.
Yeah, I like Substance quite a bit.
Yeah, so you haven't seen Substance, Robert?
I have.
Oh, okay.
Most of the rest of it I haven't, but I did think the Substance was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very on the nose, but it owned it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one too where it's a little tough because there's a couple movies that have like the simultaneous release, and now those are becoming more and more prestige, I guess. So was it Woman of the Hour and Hitman come to mind too, which I liked Hitman. I would like to rewatch Woman of the Hour. I don't know. I think there's maybe a little bit more going on there than I potentially gave it credit to on the first watch. I would also say I was a little lukewarm to it when I first saw it, but it's one movie that I probably thought about the most this year, and that's I saw the TV Glow.
I saw that, yeah.
And for nothing else, I love I love the mythology that's created around the TV show, and it just evokes a lot of memories of like watching the X-Files back when it was first airing, and the books and companions that would come out with that, because it was like right at the cusp of like the internet, where it's not as big as it is now, and so it's kind of a dedicated minority. You would still have like at Barnes and Noble or Borders or whatever books that would break down each of the episodes and just kind of how they treat that. And then when he rewatches it on Netflix or whatever 20 years later, and how it's such a different thing, I really like that presentation. That's kind of wholly missing, I think, the main point of the movie, but that's something that really stands out to me. I'd say same thing with Maxine. I liked it, but yeah, it's probably my least favorite of the three, though Pearl's a really tough act to follow.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Pearl's like the masterpiece of that trilogy.
Yeah.
See, my favorite is still the first one, but I think Pearl is good too, obviously. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I like the ideas there. Some other ones that I like Civil War. I like Civil War more than I thought I would. And I had some high hopes for Late Night with the Devil, which I think is such a great premise, and I think that there's so much of it that it nails really well. But I kind of wish
the bandits just conceit at the end, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I really wish that it had stuck to that. I wish that it would confine the camera just to like the perspective of somebody watching at home, and kind of like keep to that idea of footage that would just exist within the confines of that show. But I think performances are really, really good with that. And I mean, they have a great idea, and I think they really cover at least a lot of the best parts of that idea. But yeah.
I also forgot to mention I liked Rebel Ridge a fair amount. Maybe not in my top 10, but I thought it was pretty noteworthy.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Aaron Pierre is the star of their eyes.
Yeah, he's got quite the presence.
I thought Hollywood was kind of a weak year. I think everything seemed to be a remake or a sequel or a reimagining, in the case of something like The Fall Guy. I thought there was a lot of trying to relive past glories to diminishing returns, thinking mostly of Ghostbusters. and to an extent Twister, although I think Twister did have a nice star-making turn for Glenn Powell in it, and I think Beetlejuice was not in the same league as the first one, although I feel like Tim Burton was at least engaged, even if the script was not quite all there. And I feel like Michael Keaton and Kathleen O'Hara were at least trying to bring it, and it often did. So I kind of feel that way. I thought, there wasn't a whole lot I felt for me as an adult in the summer, though. I was very happy to finally catch up with Challengers, which is like going, hey, Luca Guadagnino, you are bringing it. And,
yeah. So I was thinking like there are directors now who I didn't really think about much before, but I think I will always see everything that they put out, and two of them are Luca Guadagnino and Alex Garland. Like I didn't really think of them as being auteurs, but then I was thinking like, oh, I've seen all their movies. I like most of them. Like I don't love them all, but I do like them all, like to some extent. And then this year I just thought they had both unique movies. Like there aren't too many like adult dramas anymore. Like that's been moved to TV and streaming.
Yes.
So when you have stuff like that come out, it's like a breath of fresh air a bit, which is crazy because it's like that used to be what was all of
Hollywood. That was the bread and butter.
Yeah.
The mid-budget Hollywood picture about people.
Yeah. But yeah, I just think Challengers I really, really liked. Like I would like to rewatch for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was fun. I think Dune Part 2 was a big hit, and a big hit for a reason. And I kind of wonder has Dune replaced Star Wars in the public imagination? And I feel like Star Wars is kind of like, oh, that's on Disney Plus, while Dune is in theaters. And I kind of feel like whatever hold Star Wars had, I feel it's kind of like it's been diminished. Well, I don't want to say diminished because television is worthwhile in itself, but it seems to be, we don't want to pay big bucks to see Star Wars anymore.
Well, it is.
And I feel that there was a couple of Star Wars misses this year. I mean, I don't want to say Ahsoka, but I thought that was kind of a one for the hardcore fans only, and Acolyte didn't seem to please anybody. And I guess Skeleton Crew was well received, but seemed to be relegated to kids, which I feel is appropriate for Star Wars. But yeah,
I'm not sure if I'm the target audience for Star Wars, but because I didn't even know about any of those shows, and I was pretty pumped for Dune. So yeah, maybe Dune in a weird way has taken over. I don't know. Like the big budget sci-fi in theaters, I guess. I don't know, because it was pretty good. Like,
yeah.
And I think a lot of people saw it, which is surprising because it's a weird story.
Not as weird as the book.
It's the second part too of.
Yeah, that's true. It's the second part, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel a lot of people caught up with it on streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. No, I kind of see your point, Robert. Like, I don't know. Like, so like my stepson likes Star Wars, but I don't know. Like, like no one at work talks about it. Like, whereas people were all talking about Dune.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I might not be typical. I am in cybersecurity, so.
I don't know if I'm believe, but I just feel like the Star Wars discussion was all about fanboys bitching about new Star Wars, not about what is actually coming out there. Even though there was a couple ones that were kind of well received, but I felt Skeleton Crew was well received, but nobody talked about it. Yeah. And that thing, I felt it was like for kids, and kids should really not be on social media.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I did see this year is like Challengers, and to an extent Nosferatu, is like, were they bringing sexy back to cinema? there certainly seems to be a very any nudity is bad vibe on the internet. Oh, maybe just be the internet. But I feel like, yeah, they had sex, and sex was a thing in several films this year.
Well, there was also the other Luca Guadagnino film, which I didn't see, Queer.
Yeah, I didn't see Queer either.
Which I was trying to see, but then realized on Mubi it's not coming out till January 31st. But that's looks like a pretty sexy film, based off of William S. Burroughs' novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen Nosferatu yet, but yeah, from what I've heard, it's pretty sexual.
Yes, it is in there. I mean, but we also have that thing about Twisters where they don't even kiss. So it seems to be like there's very much an extreme divide in theaters. So
also that Nicole Kidman film where she's playing the CEO and then
yes, Baby Girl.
She hooks up. Oh, and to be honest, like Drive Away Dolls and Love Lies Bleeding is kind of sexy. Sexy times in there.
So it seems to be like there's a bit more of a fight than we have. I mean, I know the general blockbuster, the four quadrant, we'll say Marvel or DC film, where superhero film is. People have complained that there's not much for anything titillating in them. So that seemed to be a thing.
Yeah, I'm wondering, did Marvel even have I can't even think of what the Marvel release was for this year.
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean that. I guess, but that's not like
not see.
That's not like a phase of it, is it? Or is that part of? Okay. But yeah.
I mean, that was popular.
Oh yeah, no, I think that was the second highest grossing film.
Yeah, and I feel like you had Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds together. I feel it was like, I don't know if it says Marvel is back, but the Deadpool franchise was popular, and you add Wolverine as an added value ingredient to that. It was very popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it was adult per se, but it was vulgar.
Yep.
If that goes away. I kind of wonder. I know it didn't make a lot of money, but it seemed to create some sort of stir of the People's Joker of what we would consider the best comic book movie of the year. I know that's a spicy take, but
sorry, what do you say?
The People's Joker.
The People's Joker. What is that?
It's kind of
Matt. What is that?
It's the people talking about their Joker. It's like the people versus George Lucas, but they're talking about the Joker.
It's by transsexual Vera Drake, who talks about her transition, but in terms of it being filtered through like Batman comic books.
Huh? Never heard of this.
And it's really like very self-made and very cheap, but it and then apparently it had like a cease and desist letter. It was supposed to play TIFF until DC got word of it and then put it in a cease and desist, but they finally worked their way out and it made its way around. It's very indie.
All right.
Speaking of indie, Hundreds of Beavers seem to get a lot of buzz this year.
I have no idea what that is.
I feel like there was a beaver pun that we could have put in there. Or generated a lot of buzz, generated buzzsaw, gnawing.
It's kind of a mix of silent comedy, Looney Tunes cartoon, and video games, all in one. Made ultra cheap, but I think probably the best comedy of the year.
Huh. Speaking of video games,
yeah.
I did not see this film, but I was trying to watch it on Mubi again, and it wasn't available. Grand Theft Hamlet. Have you guys heard of this?
Have not.
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's about an adaptation of Hamlet done entirely in Grand Theft Auto 5.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was in festivals 2024, so I guess it's being formally released 2025. So I think it's 2025 film. So But yeah, maybe some more, maybe newer trend in the last few years is mixing video games and movies together in weird ways.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's inevitable. I mean, video games are such a part of the culture; they have to work their way into movies at some point.
Yeah.
It's
So Robert
do.
and Nat, did you guys like Gladiator 2?
I didn't see Gladiator 2.
I wanted to see Gladiator 2, but I couldn't fit it into my schedule.
Right.
I wanted to see it with friends, and you know how it is. It's hard to arrange a podcast to go to a movie these days.
Yeah, totally. Well, I saw it. I didn't like it, so.
Figured I'm not a huge fan of the original, but
The original's better.
okay, well,
Yeah.
I will say I feel that theatrical business kind of reestablished itself this year after the pandemic. I mean, I think April and May were kind of rough. I mean, I know Furiosa pretty much flopped for no good reason, other than it was kind of long. And I always thought the Fall Guy would at least connect a little bit, because that used to be you used that in the '90s, it would have been a big hit. But I feel like, come June, July, August, September, basically through the rest of the year, I felt like, I won't say that the pandemic didn't happen, but it feels like it's certainly a lot of people's rear window. I think even older audiences came back for something like Conclave, which is surprising, but it's a good trend.
Yeah, for me, because of where I live close to two theaters that mostly show older stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of going to the theaters for older movies and watching newer movies on streaming, which is maybe a weird trend. But
yeah, it is a weird trend, but I would agree that I saw a lot of revival screenings happen this year. If I didn't go to a ton of them, I did see them happening, and I understand they did really well, and I kind of understand it too. If you're just going to make new movies be remakes of older ones that are much loved, and maybe you're just getting diminishing returns from trying to relive past glories, when you can just see the originals these days fairly easily in a theatrical environment. I mean, I feel like there's business to that. I mean,
well, I will say,
like
at my local theater, the films that are old, like the older films, those screenings are sold out, and the newer films are not. So.
Yeah, I do feel that the art house cinema is mixing it in. I don't feel like they're doing the older ones like we're going to play them 3 times a day for 2 weeks, but they will, we'll work it in there and people will come.
Yeah.
And I feel that's a post-pandemic change, but I think it's a positive post-pandemic change. I know I made it a point this year to go see Die Hard in the theaters at Christmas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that movie still plays, so I feel like that's a good sign. I'm surprised that nobody made a big release of Wizard of Oz before Wicked hit. I thought you could have done something with that, but what do I know?
No, you're right.
Yeah.
We watched it on Criterion, I think.
Yeah, we watched it. I think it was on HBO for us.
Yeah, it's definitely on HBO. And I want to show the nieces that, but we will see.
Our guys loved it, so it's nice to know that a movie made, I guess at the time 85 years ago, still plays really well, and they especially like the Cowardly Lion, so I felt very proud.
Now you have to introduce them to black and white.
Oh, well, actually, we watched a lot of black and whites when Enzo was first born, because I think his vision wasn't as well developed, so he seemed to respond really better to black and white movies than color movies. Just I think the contrast probably was a little easier for him to discern, but I don't think he knew what was going on. But he's really good at just sitting still in the theater and just watching a movie for like hours.
Yeah.
So
I made sure to introduce my nieces and nephew to Godzilla King of Monsters.
Oh, nice.
And they like that.
Nice. I
don't know if I can get them to watch like Casablanca or The Maltese Falcon or something like that, but at least it's a start.
I think if you just plant that, like I watched King Kong when I was probably my kid's age. And I know I watched Dracula, like the 31 Dracula a lot when I was growing up. We even had the Chaney Phantom of the Opera on Betamax. We still do, or at least my parents still do. So yeah, I think, and they really don't have any trouble. Like they watched a couple episodes of The Twilight Zone because they're really interested in hearing about the premise of it. So yeah, they're not fazed by black and white.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we talked about this, I think, before the show, that, there's a lot of people these days that are going right to subtitles, so because the way shows are mixed and because of just the television speakers, we don't have a sound bar, it's hard to hear.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's going to carry over
that.
into. So I wonder if that's going to carry over into movies going forward. I mean, I kind of feel like RRR with one of those successes nobody would expect.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering if that we might see more of that coming up.
And even movies that are close to silence. Like there's not a huge amount of dialogue in Dune. There's not like a huge amount of dialogue, I think, in even Furiosa. Granted, that wasn't that much of a box office success, but like you can have a pretty epic, sweeping movie that goes on for a long time and not have too much spoken. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say, as I said, Hundreds of Beavers is practically a silent film.
Yeah. And
so
black
take
and white.
note, Hollywood. Nat is saying, let's cut out the dialogue.
Cut the dialogue.
Let's cut the chase. Cut to the chase.
Many
here,
hours
okay?
as you can make it.
Yeah. Robot Dreams is practically a silent film.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen The Wild Robot, but
I haven't either, but I hear really good things about it. I did take the kids a couple times. So saw Despicable Me 4, which the Minions can be kind of funny, but I don't understand why this franchise is that popular. And
come on, Nat.
It's the Minions for that.
It's the Minions.
It is okay. It is the Minions. So why don't they just keep it the Minions? Like I like Steve Carell, but Gru is not funny. And
you can't just do the Minions as a movie. They need to be the side
they
character.
They did do the Minions just as a movie like 10 years ago when it was a huge hit.
But really?
Yeah.
It was a hit, but the Despicable Me movies make more.
I think you need the Minions in small doses, and then when they come in, you really laugh, and then you're bored for a bit, and then you get, oh, Minions are back, and then you laugh more again.
That's okay. That sounds more like a science experiment than something I want to pay money to see. I did see Inside Out 2 with the kids.
I watched that at home, and that was good. Though I kind of feel kind of a beat for beat remake of the first one.
But no Richard Kind, so.
I will say, Anxiety was funny, and then
I like. I like the ideas of that, and I think also I'm trying to think some of the other ones, but yeah, a little disappointed with Salem's Lot, and
I watched that actually.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I was interested, but the reviews were not good. I think I didn't like it. Yeah,
I think it was boring. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I'm on the cusp of watching Alien Romulus.
Oh, I saw that.
But I hear so much that it's the greatest hits package that I've kind of gotten to go. I don't
It
really want a
is,
greatest hit package.
It's got promise in the beginning. Like it has a really cool, like the way it sets up the world is really cool. And then yes, you're right. It is literally the greatest hits of the first three.
But I like the first three.
So do I. Yeah.
Yeah. At least I like the first two, and at least I think 3 is interesting. I think 4 is interesting too, for that matter.
Yeah,
4 is not particularly good, but it's fun.
I'm not a total hater of 4. I did rewatch them all after Romulus, so I rewatched them all again. I think I enjoyed. I think 2 is pretty fun. Like, and that's so obvious, I know, but it's still pretty badass and fun.
I agree, but I do feel it was a good year for horror. I mean, I feel like there was a good horror movie basically at all the quarters of the year. I mean, Late Night with the Devil, I don't think was a complete success, but it had some certainly terrific moments, and I think David Dastmalchian was gave a really good performance. The Substance, Nosferatu, Longlegs were good. I haven't seen Smile 2 and the Heretic, but I want to.
So one horror that I liked that I didn't really expect to like was Immaculate.
Yeah, and The Last Omen was much better than it had any right to be.
Oh, I did not like Last Omen. I liked
the first Omen,
Immaculate.
I should say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, the first Omen. Yeah, I didn't like that very much, but.
Well, I have a kind of difficult relationship with the Omen movies.
Because you are Damien.
I think they're trash, but because Gregory Peck was in it, nobody treats them as trash.
So I love that just the presence of Gregory Peck, and he's in movies that can be kind of trashy, like Cape Fear. It's pretty trashy, but
yeah.
I like that theory. I want to explore this theory.
I don't think people think Omen movies are good, though.
I think the first one is held in pretty high esteem.
I think the first one is.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be, but the
third one's where it's at.
Okay.
When he runs for president or whatever.
Yeah, with Sam Neill.
Yeah. That one's good.
I think they're all kind of basically, we're going to have some trashy Final Destination style deaths in them. And maybe we'll have some good music, and we'll tap into some religious symbolism. And that's what we go. That's what you got.
Did anyone see, on the subject of horror, Night Bitch?
No.
Nope.
I never even heard of it, actually.
I know Amy Adams is there. It's kind of mom dealing with shit movie.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm curious.
And it's not a horror movie, but I do want to watch Anora because I think
it's a comedy.
That looks that looks very good. Yeah.
Yeah,
really
and I think
it's very good. And I would go so far as say it has the best scene of the year, which is the final scene.
Okay. Well, I think isn't that also Criterion next month?
It's real soon.
Yeah,
I think it's
soon. Yeah.
Which may be the fastest turnaround.
It's very soon. I know. Portrait of a Lady on Fire had a quick turnaround.
I think Worst Person in the World also.
That one too. Yeah.
But
I saw like a Japanese film that premiered on Criterion this year, so they're kind of getting more into.
Yeah, Perfect Days is pretty quick.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Like it's kind of fun when you have stuff premiere on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Beast came out on the Criterion channel pretty quick. Though I don't have the Criterion disc release yet, but. And Evil Does Not Exist. I know it had a pretty quick run to Criterion channel.
Yeah, sorry, that's the one I was talking about. Yeah, that's the one I saw. Evil Does Not Exist. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I've been meaning to see it because I think Hamaguchi is very talented.
Yeah, you might find the topic interesting because of your job, actually.
Yeah, I might. I started it, but I didn't get beyond the credits because I was disrupted and haven't had the time to pick it up. But when I have 2 hours, I'm gonna sit down and watch it. I'm trying to think what else is it. I feel like there's not much really for good action this year, other than Furiosa. I mean, the Fall Guy certainly was a love letter to stuntmen, and I feel it has some good action beats in it. But I don't know if I would call it an action film, or I would say that, I was expecting more out of Gosling and Blunt for their chemistry, and I expected a little bit more comedy, and I was expecting a mystery to actually be interesting.
And it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
I didn't see it, but I assumed it was going to be boring. Dune 2 had some good stuff in it, I would say, for action.
Yeah.
But Dune was more about, like, I don't know, like the planet and...
Yeah, I mean, it had some of my favorite stuff, too, but, I mean, it really was not an action film.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's more of, like, the setting and the ideas of that. And I'm trying to think what else was that. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine had some good bits, but, I wouldn't really say it's a good action film. But I think it principally works as a comedy.
In terms of action, I would just say, like, just, with badass fights, I would say Rebel Ridge had the best scenes that I saw.
It did. Yeah. Saulnier very, very good at what he does, and he certainly has a visceral touch to his filmmaking, which I think works really well.
Yeah, like it's just kind of fun to watch a character who's extremely calm and collected, and just take down people. Like, yeah, it's very fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, he's not so much an expert that he's invulnerable or could just be hit with a random bullet at any time.
No, of course not. Yeah, it's not like Steven Seagal where he's just grabbing people and pushing them with their face or whatever he does.
I'm trying to think what else what I think was the major events of this year. I mean, we had a couple of musicals. One was very successful, one was not. Wicked was very successsul. Joker Folie à Deux was not.
Yeah, I was going to say that. What is the biggest flop of the year? And
it's clearly Joker 2.
Yeah.
Really? It's a flop? Like, it didn't make a lot of money, or?
I don't know how much it made, but I think in terms of, like, potentially what the expectations were, or at least the gulf between the box office of the first film and the box office of the sequel, and then...
Yeah, the first one made over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Or grossed over $1 billion, and the second one made, what, around $200 million?
Maybe. I don't know.
And it cost about $200 million for the sequel, because everybody wanted to get paid.
Well, and I would say, too, probably, like, critical reception, or gulf between critical reception, I imagine, was pretty high. Although I haven't seen it, so...
It's one that I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah.
I felt there was actually some dramas that actually seemed to have some box office appeal for a change. I mean, I don't know what I'd really call Challengers. I mean, I guess it's a drama. But it certainly has a lot going on in it. But you also had Conclave, which seemed to be a big hit. And I would not have seen that one coming. The Brutalist seems like it has potential to do well. So, I mean, that's a nice change where dramas are actually making money in theaters. I know Warner Brothers treated Clint Eastwood's film, Juror Number 2, very poorly. I haven't seen it yet, but,
Oh, I saw that. I wouldn't say it's like a good movie, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I would describe it, too.
I don't know why, but I just liked it.
Well, I like Nicholas Hoult. At least that should be something going for it.
See, I don't really like Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, I thought he was like super miscast.
Yeah. I really like him in Nosferatu, but I didn't like him in Juror Number 2.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I am generally interested in Clint Eastwood films. I mean, I know all the criticisms and problems that they sometimes have, but he is one of those classic directors that will like, here's a dramatic situation, and I will take it and make it a dramatic movie. I mean, he doesn't reinvent the wheel. I mean, the last time he may have reinvented the wheel was probably Unforgiven.
Oh, what about White Hunter, Black Heart, man? Come on.
I think it's after that, but
I even like White Hunter, Black Heart, but
you do?
I think I'm gonna stick with Unforgiven here. But I feel like he's one of those guys that you give him a simple story and he will bring it to life. And I've heard good things about some of the craft on it, so I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I probably will see it soon. And one of them I haven't seen yet.
I would say it's very watchable.
Yeah, that's what I hear, and I'm looking forward to seeing that, Megalopolis. Wicked.
Oh, I cannot wait for you guys to see Megalopolis. I really want you guys to see it.
Then you can go to the club.
I just think you guys will either love it or hate it.
Yeah, that's what I expect too.
Yeah.
I like One from the Heart, so I've seen a lot of Coppola, so we'll see what it is. Most of them, at least I could say that, he's invested in it. For good or bad.
He is very invested in it.
Yeah.
But that's yeah. Well,
Yeah.
whatever.
I haven't seen The Count of Monte Cristo, but I hear it's fun. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I'm looking forward to seeing Nickel Boys at some point.
Yep. Unfrosted, probably should also do a shout out to.
I hear the funeral sequence is funny.
It's strange. It's like if you were to say from the people who brought you B movie, I would totally believe that.
Yeah.
I went in like, okay, is this actually trying to replicate or tell a realistic story, or is it just going to be kind of like goofy free for all? And I'm still not sure.
Yeah. I kind of feel that the streamers did not have a good year. We can say Hollywood didn't have a good year, but I feel that the streamers didn't really have much that stuck. I mean, Hitman was good.
Mm-hmm.
Rebel Ridge was good. I'm not sure it was a whole lot for streaming movies. I know Amelia Perez has some awards buzz, but I don't know.
I don't understand that, but yeah.
Did
But otherwise, I
anyone's-
feel like it kind of like the bubble kind of popped on the parade. I feel like Zack Snyder certainly didn't have a good year.
No.
And they spent a lot of money on that. I know Apple kind of took a swing with Wolves and then decided that got cold feet at the last minute and didn't do a theatrical run with that. And from what I hear, we didn't miss a whole lot, but still.
Was Late Night with the Devil, like, that was through Shudder? Did that
Shudder.
premiere on Shudder as well?
No, that was in theaters.
Okay.
And I think it was actually one of the more successful ones. Was it CBS Films that did that one? I think it might have been their most successful film they ever released in theaters.
I didn't
Cool.
see Roadhouse, which I think was also.
I also
think-
saw that.
That was Amazon, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
And I think that one flopped,
I saw it.
or at least flopped critically. It might have been watched.
I don't know
Okay.
how they measured it, but I watched it. I don't
Any
think
good?
No, I don't think so.
Did
Like it's not like the first one's good, but
you shut your fucking mouth there, Cody? That's a masterpiece of cinema.
well, I liked the first one. I really like to watch it with a crowd, but
Okay.
I don't think it's a good movie. But this one is not like this one doesn't have the same like fun moments as the first one.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Like he's not reading like philosophy in bed shirtless, in this one.
As one does.
Well, then, yeah, that's to
Yeah.
that.
I'm trying.
Did anyone see
think what
Lisa
else?
Frankenstein?
No,
I
I didn't
have
really even understand what it was
Friends that
about.
did it, they liked it, but
Yeah.
But Yeah, I feel like there's a much better slate coming up for streaming movies in 2025, which we'll get to in a bit. Trying to think what else I want to think. I think one of the better streaming movies I did see was the Yacht Rock documentary on HBO.
Oh yeah, the highlight of it being when he calls up Donald Fagen.
Yes.
Where you know exactly what's going to happen and what he's going to say, and it's still funny.
It is. But you know what I do find endearing about that is it actually made a case that the music was good, or at least interesting. So kind of this smooth, soft rock, jazz influenced music with sensitive guys singing and Michael McDonald.
Lots of Michael McDonald,
including the SCTV sketch. So I'm trying to think if I have anything else that I want to talk about. I mean, I will mention that I haven't seen it yet, but I imagine Criterion Channel again. I really like Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World. I mean, the Romanians are kicking butt as far as films are concerned right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I saw that.
I did not.
Another long movie, or another about 3-hour movie, which I enjoyed the heck out of.
I will say this is the year when I've pretty much fell off of Letterboxd. I've been super bad with it, and it's mostly because I hate to say it, they have too many ads. Like, it's become a very annoying platform to use, and it makes me sad because I did like it a lot.
Yeah, I still like it, but yeah. So, what are you guys looking forward to 2025?
I guess the one. So because I didn't see Queer at TIFF, and I don't know if it came out in theaters, I'm looking forward to seeing it on Mubi when it comes out in a couple days. Grand Theft Hamlet, which is also coming out on Mubi, which I wanted to see at festivals but missed, looks pretty good. And then aside from that, I have no idea what's coming out. So,
well, I have two that I'm really looking forward to. Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17.
oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. He releases a movie, I go see it. That's how it works, I think. And Guillermo del Toro's finally tackling Frankenstein. So I'm interested to see what he comes up with. I mean, I'm also interested in Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, but I feel like Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein is the thing to see, because that seems like a match of director and material that doesn't come along very often.
Yeah, I should say. So he lives in Toronto about half the year, and he came to our theater, the Review Cinema, did like a screening of Crimson Peak.
Okay.
It was obviously sold out. My stepson and wife went. They got our copy of Chronos signed.
Nice.
And what was funny was my stepson was going to get it signed, and then he was looking at it, looked confused, and then he said, "Oh, that one." He's a very, very nice person. Like, and I'm sure you guys already know that, but like, he is a very generous and nice person. Like, he's going to start programming at this theater.
Cool.
And
he's very knowledgeable.
Yeah, he's just a great person. Like, he's like so into being in Toronto and loves shooting films here, loves being here. So yeah, that was kind of a cool film thing from last year.
So Nat, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, Nat, what are you looking forward to, Nat?
Yeah, I really don't know that much of like what is coming out. So generally, I just use directors as my guideline for what to go see. Although I do want to see Den of Thieves too. I do like the original in that. I am kind of excited for 28 Years Later.
Yeah, I am.
With hesitations. I like Megan, and so I'll probably see Megan too. And it's I don't know, it's probably for me at least too early in the year to actually like find movies that I want to see besides sequels. But
Yeah.
I think they're doing a sequel to Nobody, which I'm kind of excited to check out. I think Paul Thomas Anderson has a movie coming out this year.
Maybe.
Yeah, potentially. But yeah, I guess Edgar Wright's Running Man is coming out, which might be interesting.
Yeah, it certainly will be different from the other movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that many that are expected to release now. I don't know. I kind of want to see Wolfman, but I've heard it's like pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I heard it sucked.
Yeah.
I hear it is what the trailer presented as, and it doesn't go far enough.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the design of the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, well,
it's what I look forward to catching up to at home.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like the highlight of my year is whatever the Criterion is doing for a curated selection in September.
That's usually pretty great.
That tends to be, like the best time for movies. And,
yeah, Giallo was a lot of fun this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love the high school stuff last year. Although we came up with our theme before they announced theirs, I would like to note.
Yes, we did.
We're ahead of the curve. We're ahead of the curve on Tubi. We're ahead of the curve on Criterion. Sometimes we steal from Criterion, but they steal from us, I think, more often. Cody, I think you've been keeping count, so we can get the final tally from you and before the end of this episode. But I'm going to declare that check out Pluto next. That's going to be the next big free
Pluto's the new up and coming platform. I gotta check it out.
Yep. But yeah, so we'll see where the wind blows and takes us, gents, and we'll sail off into a cinematic sunset.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good wrap up. So, Cody, what do you have for us next month?
All right. Next month we'll be watching Mr. Stitch.
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that.
I don't. Please tell me it says Dolph Lundgren.
No. It has Rutger Hauer, though.
Okay.
Even better.
Acceptable.
It is Roger Avery's first directorial film.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's a take on Frankenstein.
Okay.
And I've heard it's very bad. So
that sounds entertaining.
That's why I picked it.
Very bad is almost as good as very good for discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Purposes.
Well, we also got, in addition to Rutger Hauer, Will Wheaton, Nia Peoples, and Ron Perlman.
Yeah, Will Wheaton's in it.
Yeah.
Ron Perlman's in it. Does that cancel out?
No, it doesn't.
Well,
yeah.
I like listening to Roger Avery on the Video Archives podcast. So
he seems like a sweet guy.
His daughter sounds nice too.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the name of that again? I'm not sure if I quite caught it.
Mr. Stitch.
Mr. Stitch. Okay.
Mr. Stitch.
Got it. That's a Frankenstein thing.
You could say that. Yeah. Let me just make sure I have the title right. Mr. Stitch.
You got a year on that?
95.
1995. Yeah. Oh man, these pictures look horrible.
Sounding better and better.
Yeah.
Written, directed, produced by Roger Avery. 1995.
I know he has some good movies, but this does not sound like one of them.
What's his good movie? Like Rules of Attraction?
Or Killing Zoe.
Killing Zoe. a lot of his movies have been not released as well. Anyway, we'll get into it. He's also got a manslaughter conviction.
Yeah. For was it drunken driving, basically?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, my mistake. Killing Zoe was his first film that he directed.
Okay.
I misspoke.
So this is his sophomoric.
This is his sophomore. This is his sophomore effort. Yeah.
Well, he did co-write
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction, so he always have that going for him.
Yep.
Yep.
And
that's
also
true.
Silent Hill and Beowulf.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Does that cancel it out?
I don't know what that does, but it's something. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. That's the next film, Mr. Stitch, starring Rutger Hauer.
Okay. So that should about wrap this up. If you have questions or comments, you can email us at skiespodcast@gmail.com or leave us a note on Facebook. Also, feel free to share a link on social media. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us next month for Mr. Stitch. Bye.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Ne me demandez pas si j'aime la Grâce, ne me demandez pas si j'aime Paris. Autant demander à l'oiseau dans l'espace s'il aime le ciel ou s'il aime son nid. Autant demander au marin qui voyage s'il peut vivre sans la mer et le beau temps. Autant demander à une fleur sauvage s'il en peut vraiment se passer de printemps. Paris, 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 c'est sur la terre un coin de paradis. Paris, 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 de mes amours, c'est lui le favori. Mais oui, paradis, ce que j'en dis on vous l'a déjà dit. Et c'est Paris qui fait la parisienne, qu'importe qu'elle vienne du nord ou bien du midi. Et c'est aussi le charme et l'élégance et l'âme de la France, tout cela, mais c'est Paris.
Paris, Paris, Paris.
Madame, c'est votre robe si jolie.
Paris, Paris, Paris.
C'est votre beau bijou d'un goût exquis. Mais oui, paradis. C'est aussi votre généreux mari. Mais oui, Paris, c'est votre boucle blonde, qu'on sait le mieux du monde, coiffée avec fantaisie. Mais oui, Paris, c'est votre beau sourire, c'est tout ce qu'on désire, tout cela, mais c'est Paris. Et c'est aussi le charme et l'élégance et l'âme de la France. Tout cela, oui, c'est Paris.
Watch the skies everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies.